My name is Anna Martinez, and I'm 32 years old. Standing at that airport counter, exhausted after 3 days of back-to-back meetings in New York, I never imagined how one man's cruelty would change everything. The man in the expensive suit behind me was growing impatient, loudly complaining about economy passengers blocking the business class line. Then he pushed past me with a sneer that cut deep. Economy. Don't complain, this is all you can handle. Those words hit differently when you recognize the voice. Before I continue this incredible story, let me know where you're watching from. Please hit that like button and subscribe because what happened next at that airport counter changed not just my life, but exposed a truth about power that needed to be heard. You know, success feels different when you've watched your mother's hands crack from cleaning chemicals every night. My mother Maria raised me alone working nights at office buildings throughout San Francisco. The irony wasn't lost on me that I now worked in one of those same gleaming towers she used to clean. But back then I was just a kid doing homework in empty conference rooms, while she vacuumed around me, both of us invisible to the people who'd return in the morning. The worst nights were at Blackstone Capital. Not because the offices were bigger or messier, but because of him, James Blackstone III. Even as a 10-year-old, I knew something was wrong with how he treated my mother. He was maybe 17, then coming in late with his prep school friends, deliberately knocking over coffee cups and laughing as my mother rushed to clean before it stained the expensive carpets. One time I watched him pour an entire pot of coffee on the conference table, then stand there smirking as my mother got on her knees to stop it from dripping onto the chairs. That smirk, 22 years later, and I recognized that exact same smirk. My phone buzzed with an email from my assistant. Tomorrow's pitch to investors was confirmed. My startup had developed something revolutionary, a financial literacy app specifically designed for low-income communities. We called it Bridge, because that's what it was meant to be, a bridge from poverty to possibility. 43 employees were counting on me to secure this Series B funding. $8.5 million would let us expand to 12 more cities, help thousands more families, break the cycle of payday loans and predatory lending. The irony hit me like a physical blow when I saw the investor name, Blackstone Capital, lead investor. James Blackstone III, new head of their venture division, would be deciding our fate. I looked at him again, this expensive suit who'd just dismissed me as economy class. He didn't recognize me. Why would he? I wasn't Martinez back then. My mother remarried when I was 15, and I took my stepfather's name. I'd graduated from Berkeley, built a career transformed from that invisible child doing homework in his father's offices to someone who belonged in these spaces. At least I thought I belonged, until he reminded me that people like him still saw people like me as less than. He was making a scene now at the gate agent's desk. The young black woman behind the counter, her name tag read Keisha, was maintaining perfect professionalism despite his escalating voice. His assistant booked the wrong class, he said. "Do you know who I am?" he demanded. The Blackstone name should mean something here. Other passengers were starting to notice. An elderly man in a veteran's cap shifted uncomfortably. A young mother tried to distract her special needs child from the yelling. An Asian student clutched his backpack tighter, stepping back from the confrontation. We all recognized this dance, the powerful demanding more power, the rest of us trying to become invisible. But I wasn't invisible anymore. I pulled out my phone and started recording. James's voice carried across the gate area. "This is unacceptable," he said. "I fly business class exclusively. My time is worth more than these people's entire year." He gestured dismissively at the economy passengers. "Fix this now or I'll have you fired." Actually, scratch that. What's your manager's name? Someone who looks like you clearly doesn't understand customer service. The racist undertone wasn't even subtle. Keisha's hands trembled slightly as she typed, but her voice remained steady. "Sir, I understand your frustration, but the flight is completely booked. I can put you on the standby list for business class." Standby. He laughed, that cruel sound I remembered from decades ago. "I don't do standby. I don't wait. People wait for me." He pulled out his wallet, throwing credit cards at her. "Here, pick one. Any one. They all have $100,000 limits. Now find me a business class seat or find yourself a new job." The cards scattered across the counter and floor. One landed near my feet. the same American Express black card his father had once waved at my mother when accusing her of stealing office supplies that he'd hidden himself as some sick game. The elderly veteran had seen enough. He stepped forward, his Marine Corps pin catching the fluorescent lights. "Son," he said calmly, "that's no way to talk to anyone." James turned his face twisted with disdain. "Let me guess, flying on government handouts. Thank you for your service and all that, but maybe sit this one out, Grandpa. This is between people who actually contribute to the economy." Robert, that was the veteran's name as I'd later learned, stood straighter despite the insult. 73 years old, 2 tours in Vietnam, 30 years as a public school teacher after that. And this man in his $2,000 shoes had just reduced him to nothing. The young mother, Sarah, was next to feel James's wrath. Her son, maybe 6 years old, was having a meltdown. The noise, the crowds, the delays, it was all too much for him. She approached Keisha quietly, asking about priority boarding for passengers with disabilities. James overheard. "Oh, great, another fake disability scam. Let me guess your kid's special needs are that he doesn't like waiting in lines. Everyone's got anxiety or autism or whatever trendy diagnosis gets them special treatment now. Some of us actually have real problems like being stuck in economy because of incompetent staff." Sarah's face crumbled. Her son, picking up on his mother's distress, began crying harder. She tried to explain that he had severe autism, that transitions were difficult, but James had already moved on to his next target. The international student Lynn made the mistake of asking if this was the right gate for Phoenix. His accent was slight, his English near perfect, but it was enough for James. "Jesus Christ," he said loudly. "Don't they have signs in whatever language you speak? This is America. Learn to read English or go back to wherever you came from." Lynn stammered an apology, even though he'd done nothing wrong. I watched him shrink into himself, making his tall frame as small as possible. I knew that feeling. The desperate need to disappear when someone with power decided you didn't belong. My phone was still recording. Every word, every cruel gesture, every person he diminished. But then my email dinged again. The agenda for tomorrow's meeting. James would be the primary decision maker. He'd have my company's future in his hands. 43 jobs, thousands of families we could help, all dependent on the man currently terrorizing an entire gate area. I thought about my team. Marcus, my COO, who'd left Goldman Sachs to join our mission. Jennifer, our lead developer, who'd grown up in the same neighborhood I did. David, our youngest employee, who'd paid his way through coding boot camp while supporting his younger siblings. They were all counting on me to close this deal. But then I looked at Keisha. Tears were forming in her eyes, though she fought them back. Her professionalism was cracking under his relentless assault. He was now demanding to speak to the airline's CEO, claiming he knew him personally, that she'd be fired before the plane took off. "You people," he said, and we all knew what he meant by those two words, "always think you can get away with incompetence." But not with me. I've got lawyers who eat customer service reps for breakfast. "What's your full name?" "Actually, don't bother. I'll find out myself." "Your days here are numbered," Keisha's manager had been called. Marcus, a different Marcus from my COO, walked up with the measured pace of someone who'd dealt with difficult passengers before. Former Air Force built like he could handle himself. But even he seemed to recognize the particular danger of an entitled wealthy man having a meltdown. "Mr. Blackstone," Marcus said, reading from his tablet. "I see you've had some concerns today." James's demeanor shifted slightly. Someone knew his name, recognized his importance. "Finally, someone competent," he said. "Your employee here has been completely useless. I demand you fire her immediately and get me on this flight in business class where I belong." Marcus looked at his tablet again, scrolling through something. "Mr. Blackstone, I show here that you've had similar situations with our airline on 3 previous occasions. We've accommodated you each time, but I'm afraid today we simply cannot bump confirmed passengers. Are you serious right now?" James's voice rose to near shouting. "Do you know how much money Blackstone Capital spends on corporate travel? We could buy this entire airline with pocket change." That's when I made my decision. 43 jobs be damned. Some things mattered more than money. I stepped forward, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "That's enough." James turned to me, his eyes narrowing. Another economy passenger thinking they matter. "This doesn't concern you, sweetheart. Mind your own business." Actually, I said, pulling out my phone to show I'd been recording when you harass airline staff and fellow passengers. It becomes everyone's business. You violated federal aviation guidelines on passenger conduct. That's not opinion. That's fact. His face went from dismissive to furious in seconds. Are you threatening me? Do you have any idea who I am? I could end your entire life with one phone call. I know exactly who you are, James Blackstone III. I know your father founded Blackstone Capital in 1987. I know your family's worth approximately $2.3 billion. And I know that on March 15th, 2002, you deliberately destroyed a conference room that took a cleaning woman 4 hours to restore because you thought it was funny to watch her panic about losing her job. The blood drained from his face. How could you possibly? Because that cleaning woman was my mother. And I was the 10-year-old kid doing homework in the corner while you and your prep school friends made her cry. The gate area had gone completely silent. Everyone was watching now. Robert stepped up beside me, solidarity in his stance. Sarah started recording with her phone too. Lynn pulled up something on his laptop, his fingers flying across the keyboard. "You're lying," James sputtered. "You're just trying to get money or attention or—" "I'm not lying, and I don't want your money. I want you to apologize to Keisha, to Robert, to Sarah and her son, to Lynn, to everyone here you've insulted and degraded." He laughed, but it was nervous now. "You're insane if you think I'm apologizing to anyone, especially not to some nobody who claims to know me from 20 years ago. You probably weren't even born here. Your kind always makes up sob stories. My kind." I kept my voice level. "You mean Americans, Berkeley graduates, tech executives? Or do you mean people whose mothers cleaned your father's offices so you could inherit a company you never earned?" Keisha's manager, Marcus, had been watching this unfold with interest. He looked at his tablet again, then at James. "Mr. Blackstone, I'm going to have to ask you to lower your voice and step back from the counter. I'm not going anywhere until I get what I deserve," James shouted. That's when David, a teenager who'd been sitting nearby with his laptop, spoke up. Dude, you're trending on Twitter. Or X, whatever we're calling it now." "What?" James spun around. David turned his laptop screen toward us. "I've been live streaming this whole thing. 20,000 viewers and climbing. The comments are, 'Wow, looks like people are already tagging Blackstone Capital. Your company's PR team is probably having a really bad night.'" James lunged for the laptop. David pulled it back just in time, but James's attempted grab was caught in perfect detail by his 20,000 witnesses. "Delete that immediately," James demanded. "That's illegal. You can't film me without consent." Actually, Lynn spoke up, his voice stronger. Now we're in a public space with clear security camera notices. California is a two-party consent state for private conversations, but this is a public disturbance. Recording is completely legal. "How would you know?" James snarled. "Because I'm a third-year law student at Stanford," Lynn replied calmly. "And I'm writing my dissertation on corporate accountability and public behavior. You've just become my star case study." James's phone started ringing, then pinging with texts, then ringing again. He looked at the screen and his face went pale. It was his father calling. "Don't answer that here," I advised. 20,000 people don't need to hear that conversation." But he was panicking now, fumbling with the phone. He tried to decline the call, but accidentally hit speaker instead. James's father's voice boomed through the gate area. "What the hell have you done now? I've got reporters calling about some incident at the airport. The board is having an emergency meeting. Our stock is down 3% in after-hours trading. Dad, I can explain." "No, no more explaining. No more excuses. You're done. Get back to the office now. And James, you better hope this doesn't cost us the Henderson deal, or you're not just out of the company, you're out of the family trust." The call ended. Everyone in the gate area had heard it. James stood there, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. "This is your fault," he pointed at me. "You did this. You ruined everything." "No," Keisha said quietly but firmly. "You did this. All we did was our jobs. All she did was stand up for us." More passengers started pulling out their phones, adding their own recordings and stories to social media. The hashtag Blackstone Shame was already trending. Videos from different angles showed every moment of James's meltdown, his attempted grab of David's laptop, his racist comments, his classist sneers. James was frantically trying to make calls now, but no one was answering. His assistant, his lawyer, his PR team, everyone was either in crisis mode or distancing themselves from him. Marcus, the manager, received a call on his radio. He listened, nodded, then addressed James. "Mr. Blackstone, I've just been informed by our corporate office that you've been placed on our no-fly list pending a full investigation. Security will escort you from the terminal." "What? No. You can't do that." "I'll sue you. I'll own this airline." "You're welcome to try," Marcus replied calmly. "But right now you need to leave." Two security officers arrived, standing on either side of James. He looked around wildly, searching for support for anyone who would take his side. But he'd burned every bridge in that gate area. As they escorted him out, he tried one more threat. "You'll regret this. All of you. Especially you." He pointed at me. "I know you said you have a meeting at Blackstone tomorrow. Whatever company you represent, it's dead. You hear me? Dead." I smiled the first time since this all started. "We'll see about that." After he was gone, the gate area slowly returned to normal. Sort of. There was a different energy now. People were talking to each other, sharing stories of their own encounters with people like James. Keisha was taking deep breaths, finally allowing herself to feel the stress of what she'd endured. I approached her. "Are you okay?" She nodded, then shook her head, then nodded again. "Thank you. Nobody's ever stood up for me like that before. Especially not a passenger. Especially not against someone with that much money." "Money doesn't make someone better than you," I said. "My mother taught me that." She cleaned offices for 30 years, and she had more dignity in her pinky finger than James Blackstone has in his entire body. Sarah approached with her son, who had calmed down now that the shouting had stopped. "Thank you for speaking up." "My son, he really does have autism. It's not a scam or an excuse. It's our reality." "I know," I said. "And you're doing an amazing job with him. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Robert shook my hand with his firm military grip. "That took courage, young lady. Real courage. Not many people would risk their career to do what's right." I thought about tomorrow's meeting, about the funding we might lose. But then I looked around at these people, these strangers who'd become allies in the span of 30 minutes, and I knew I'd made the right choice. Lynn showed me his laptop screen. The live stream had grown to 50,000 viewers. News outlets were picking up the story. Someone had already created a Wikipedia page for the incident. The internet worked fast when it smelled blood in the water. My phone rang. It was Marcus, my COO, not the airline manager. "Anna, what's happening? You're all over social media. Someone said you just took down James Blackstone." "The same James Blackstone we're pitching to tomorrow." "Yes," I said. "That James Blackstone." There was a pause. Then Marcus laughed. "Well, we always said we wanted to disrupt the financial industry. I guess we're starting early." My phone buzzed with an email as we talked. Unknown sender, but the domain caught my eye. It was from Catherine Blackstone, James's sister. I opened it, curious. "Anna Martinez," the email read. "I don't know you, but I want to thank you. My family has been enabling my brother's behavior for years. What you did today, standing up to him publicly, you did what none of us had the courage to do. I left the family business 5 years ago because of the toxic culture. If you're the Anna Martinez of Bridge Financial, the app for underserved communities, I'd like to talk to you about funding. Real funding. From people who actually care about your mission. My number is below. Call me tonight. Catherine." I showed the email to David, the teenager who'd been streaming. He grinned. "See, the internet isn't all bad. Sometimes it helps the good guys win." The gate agent announced boarding for first class and business passengers. James's empty seat would remain empty, a $2,000 reminder of his hubris. Marcus, the airline manager, approached me. "Ms. Martinez, I've been authorized to upgrade you to first class for this flight. It's the least we can do." I shook my head. "Thank you, but I'll stay in economy. That's where the real people are." He smiled, understanding. "Then let me at least ensure you board first. And Keisha wanted me to tell you that she's been promoted effective immediately. My recommendation based on how professionally she handled today's situation. She's entering our management training program." "That's wonderful," I said, and meant it. As we prepared to board, my phone rang again. This time it was my mother. Mija, she said, her voice thick with tears. I saw the video. Everyone's sending it to me. You stood up to him, to that horrible boy who made our lives so hard. He's not a boy anymore, Mom. He's a grown man who never grew up. You said I was your mother, she continued. In front of all those people. You weren't ashamed. I was never ashamed of you, Mom. Never. You worked harder than anyone I know. You gave me everything. There was something else in her voice, something she'd been holding back. Anna, there's more to that story. Things I never told you about James and his father. Things that happened when you weren't there. What things? Not now, not over the phone. But when you get back, we need to talk. Just be careful at that meeting tomorrow. The Blackstone men, they don't like losing. And they really don't like losing to women like us. The flight was surreal. Other passengers kept recognizing me from the video, which had now been viewed over 1,000,000 times. Flight attendants discreetly thanked me. The pilot even mentioned over the intercom that kindness and respect were core values of their airline, a clear reference to what had happened. But I couldn't stop thinking about tomorrow's meeting. $8.5 million. That's what we were seeking. That's what 43 employees were counting on. That's what thousands of families in underserved communities needed us to secure. I pulled up our pitch deck on my laptop. Every slide represented months of work. Our user growth metrics showing 300% increase quarter over quarter. Our impact studies showing average credit score improvements of 80 points. Our partnerships with community organizations in 7 cities. Bridge wasn't just another fintech app. It was personal. Every feature was designed with people like my mother in mind. People who worked multiple jobs but couldn't get a bank loan. People who fell into payday lending traps. People who were one emergency away from financial ruin. My phone buzzed with messages from my team. They'd all seen the video. Jennifer, our lead developer, texted, "You're my hero. If we lose funding over this, we'll figure something out. Some things matter more than money." But did they? Could I really ask 43 people to risk their livelihoods for my principles? Most of them had families, mortgages, student loans. They'd believed in me, followed me from stable corporate jobs to this startup dream. The woman sitting next to me noticed my distress. She was older, maybe 60, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. "Tough day? You could say that?" I replied. "I saw the video," she said quietly. "What you did was brave, but bravery has consequences, doesn't it?" I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. "Can I tell you something?" She pulled out her phone and showed me a photo of a young woman in a cap and gown. "This is my daughter, first in our family to graduate college. You know why? Because someone stood up for me once. 25 years ago, I was a secretary at a law firm. The senior partner was harassing me. Everyone knew, but nobody said anything. Until one day a junior associate witnessed it and reported it. She lost her job for speaking up, but I kept mine, and I was able to put my daughter through school because of it. What happened to the associate? She started her own firm, took some of us with her. She's a federal judge now. Sometimes doing the right thing costs you in the short term, but pays off in ways you can't imagine. I wanted to believe her. But 43 jobs, $8.5 million. The weight of it sat on my chest like a stone. As we landed in San Francisco, my phone exploded with notifications. The story had gone national. CNN, Fox, MSNBC, everyone was covering it. Blackstone Capital's stock had dropped 7%. There were calls for James to be removed from his position. But there was one message that stood out. It was from James himself. "You think you won, tomorrow's meeting is still happening. And I'll be there. Your little company is dead. I'll make sure no one in Silicon Valley ever funds you. Enjoy your 15 minutes of fame." I screenshot the thread and forwarded it to Catherine, his sister. Her response was immediate. "He's panicking. The board is meeting tonight about his future. Stand strong. I've got investors lined up who want to meet you. Real investors who care about more than returns." My Uber driver recognized me as soon as I got in the car. "You're the airport lady, the one who stood up to that rich jerk." My wife and I watched the whole thing live. She works customer service too. She cried watching you defend that gate agent. By the time I got home, there were news vans outside my apartment building. I ducked in through the back entrance, but my phone kept ringing. Reporters, investors, random people who'd found my number somehow. I turned it off and sat in the darkness of my apartment trying to process everything. Tomorrow morning, I would walk into Blackstone Capital's offices, into the building my mother had cleaned for years, into the room where decisions about wealth and power were made by people who'd never known poverty. And I would face James Blackstone again. But this time, I wouldn't be invisible. Morning came too quickly. I dressed carefully, choosing my best suit, the one I'd bought with my first real paycheck. My mother had insisted on coming with me, not to the meeting, but to the building. She wanted to see me walk through those front doors as an equal. The Blackstone Capitol building hadn't changed much in 20 years. Same black marble lobby, same abstract art that cost more than most people's houses. Same security desk where my mother had to show her cleaning company ID every night. We stood outside for a moment, looking up at the 40-story monument to wealth. Mom, I said, what did you mean yesterday? About things you never told me. She sighed, looking older suddenly. James, he propositioned me, many times. Said if I was nice to him, he'd help with your college. When I refused, he made everything worse. Complained about my work, got my hours cut. I never told you because you were so young and I didn't want you to carry that anger. My hands clenched into fists. Why didn't you report him to who? She laughed bitterly. His father owned the building. The cleaning company needed their contract. I was nobody. Just like he said yesterday, I could only handle what they gave me. You were never nobody, Mom. You were everything to me. She touched my face gently. Go in there and show them what we're really made of, not for revenge, for justice, for all the people still cleaning their offices at night. I walked through those front doors with my head high. The security guard, an older black man, stopped me. Name and business, Anna Martinez. I have a meeting with Blackstone Capital. He looked at his list, then looked at me more carefully. You're the woman from the video, the one who stood up to young Mr. Blackstone. That's me. He leaned in conspiratorially. Good for you. That boy's been a terror since he was in high school. Treated us like furniture. My niece Keisha, she works at the airline. She called me last night in tears. Happy tears. Said you changed her life. Small world, I said. Smaller than they think, he replied, buzzing me through. 40th floor. And Martinez. We're all rooting for you. The elevator ride felt endless. Each floor marker was a reminder of how high I'd climbed from that little girl doing homework while her mother cleaned, but also how much higher the Blackstones of the world started. The 40th floor was all glass and chrome designed to intimidate. The receptionist, a young white woman who looked like she'd never experienced a moment of financial insecurity, gave me a practiced smile. Ms. Martinez. They're waiting for you in the main conference room. They, plural. I'd expected James and maybe one or two others. When I opened the conference room door, I found 12 people around a massive table. James sat at the far end, his face a mask of barely controlled rage. But at the head of the table sat someone I'd only seen in photos. James Blackstone Sr. He was 70, maybe 75, with silver hair and cold blue eyes that had watched thousands of dreams die in this room. When he stood, everyone else remained seated, establishing the hierarchy immediately. Ms. Martinez, you've caused quite a stir. Your son caused the stir, Mr. Blackstone. I just refused to be silent about it. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Direct. I appreciate that in business. Please sit. Tell us about Bridge Financial. I remained standing. With respect, Mr. Blackstone, I'm not sure this is a good use of anyone's time. Your son has made it clear that Blackstone Capital has no intention of funding my company. James started to speak, but his father silenced him with a gesture. My son's personal feelings are irrelevant. We're here to discuss business. $8.5 million for 15% equity. Correct? That was our initial ask. Yes. Initial. You're negotiating already. No, I'm withdrawing. I pulled out my phone and showed them Catherine's email. I've had better offers from investors whose values align with ours. Investors who see our users as people, not just data points. The room stirred. James's father's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. My daughter contacted you. Your daughter understands what we're trying to build. A financial system that serves everyone, not just the wealthy. James couldn't contain himself anymore. This is ridiculous. She publicly humiliated me, cost us millions in market value. She should be begging for our forgiveness, not acting superior. Superior? I laughed. James, I'm not superior to anyone. That's the whole point. You think net worth determines worth. You think economy class means economy human. But my mother, who cleaned these very offices, has more integrity than you'll ever understand. The senior Blackstone studied me. Your mother was Maria Gonzalez, worked here from '98 to 2005. You remember her, I remember everyone who's ever worked in my buildings. It's good business to know who has access to your spaces. She was reliable, thorough. Until she wasn't. Until your son harassed her into quitting? I corrected. The room went silent. Even James looked surprised that I'd said it so directly. That's a serious accusation, the elder Blackstone said. It's not an accusation, it's a fact. I was there for some of it. Mom told me the rest yesterday. The propositions, the retaliation when she refused, the deliberate complaints to get her hours cut. All because she wouldn't trade her dignity for your son's entertainment. James sputtered. That's slander. I'll sue you for defamation. Truth is an absolute defense against defamation, I replied. Besides, you really want to go to court. Have depositions, discovery. How many other women have stories about you, James? How many other Marias and Keishas have you terrorized over the years? The senior Blackstone raised his hand again for silence. Miss Martinez. What exactly do you want? I want you to know that your money doesn't make you untouchable anymore. I want every person watching that viral video to understand that they don't have to accept abuse just because it comes from someone wealthy. And I want to build my company without your blood money. Blood money. He seemed genuinely amused. You do understand that all venture capital comes from somewhere morally complicated. Your pure investors have their own skeletons. Maybe, but they're trying to do better. Your son isn't even trying to do good. One of the other board members, an older woman who'd been silent until now, spoke up. Ms. Martinez, I'm Helen Crawford. I've reviewed your company's metrics. They're impressive. Your user retention is 92%. Your impact on credit scores is measurable and significant. Why walk away from funding that could help thousands more people? Because taking money from Blackstone would betray every one of those users. They trust us because we're not you. We don't see them as marks or margins. We see them as families trying to build better lives. James laughed bitterly. Such nobility. Let's see how noble you are when your company fails and your employees lose their jobs. That's when the door opened. Catherine Blackstone walked in, followed by 3 people I recognized from their photos. Tech luminaries, ethical investors, people who'd built billion-dollar companies while maintaining their humanity. Catherine smiled at her father and brother. Sorry to interrupt, but I thought the board should know that Bridge Financial just closed a $12 million Series B round. I'm leading it personally along with several other investors who believe in their mission. The room erupted. Board members talking over each other. James shouting about family betrayal. His father sitting perfectly still calculating. You orchestrated this, he said to me. No, sir. Your children orchestrated this. I just stood up to a bully at an airport. Everything else followed from that moment of choosing courage over comfort. Catherine handed me a folder. The real contracts, the real investors, people who'd watched the video and reached out within hours, people who understood that how you treat the vulnerable reveals who you really are. We're also announcing a partnership, Catherine added. Bridge Financial will be the exclusive financial literacy partner for the Catherine Blackstone Foundation. We're putting $50 million toward financial education in underserved communities over the next 5 years. You can't do that with family money, James protested. It's not family money, Catherine replied. It's my money, from the company I built after I left here, the one that just went public last month. You were too busy harassing flight attendants to notice your sister became a billionaire. I signed the funding documents right there in Blackstone Capital's conference room. Not to be cruel, but to make a point. The world was changing. The old power structures were crumbling. A cleaning lady's daughter could stand in the room where her mother was once invisible and choose her own terms. As we prepared to leave, the senior Blackstone spoke one more time. "Ms. Martinez, you've cost me significant money today. My son's actions, your video, this very public rejection of our offer. The market will punish us. The market will reflect reality," I said. "Your son showed who he really is. I just made sure people saw it. And what about forgiveness? What about second chances?" I looked at James, who couldn't meet my eyes. Forgiveness comes after accountability. Second chances come after genuine change. Your son hasn't even apologized to the people he hurt yesterday. "I don't apologize to people beneath me," James muttered. "And that's why you'll always be beneath them," I replied. "Character isn't about net worth. It's about how you treat people who can't do anything for you." We left them there in their glass tower with their crumbling stock price and their family dysfunction. In the elevator, Catherine squeezed my hand. "You know they'll try to retaliate. Both of them. They don't like losing. Let them try. The internet has a long memory. And I've got 43 employees who are about to become very motivated to prove Bridge Financial is the future." In the lobby, the security guard from earlier gave me a subtle thumbs up. My mother was waiting outside, tears streaming down her face, when she saw me exit with Catherine and the other investors. "You did it, Mija. You actually did it. We did it, Mom. Your strength, your sacrifice, your dignity in the face of their cruelty. That's what got me here." The news cycle exploded again. David, the teenager who'd live-streamed the original incident, had become something of a folk hero himself. He started a YouTube channel dedicated to documenting privilege and accountability. His first full episode was an interview with Keisha, the gate agent, about her experience and her promotion to management. Within a week, 3 more airlines banned James from flying with them. Within a month, he was removed from his position at Blackstone Capital. His father tried to spin it as a voluntary departure to pursue other opportunities, but everyone knew the truth. The most satisfying moment came 3 months later. Bridge Financial launched in 12 new cities, helping 15,000 families in the first quarter alone. Our average user improved their credit score by 90 points. 700 small businesses got microloans they'd been denied by traditional banks. At our launch event in Los Angeles, held in a community center, rather than a fancy hotel, my mother gave the keynote speech. She talked about cleaning offices at night while dreaming of her daughter's future, about facing harassment with dignity, about the economy of human worth that values character over cash. The room was packed with our users. Single mothers who'd escaped predatory loans, elderly people who'd learned to navigate online banking, teenagers from low-income families learning to build credit responsibly. These were the people James had dismissed as economy class, only able to handle scraps. But they were handling their business, building their futures, proving that given the right tools and respect, anyone could thrive. James eventually resurfaced at a smaller firm, his reputation forever tainted by that airport video. He tried to scrub it from the internet, but it lived on in countless copies, reminders, and memes. Someone even turned it into a training video for customer service workshops titled, "How Not to Be a James." Catherine and I became close friends and business partners. She'd been carrying guilt about her family's wealth for years, and Bridge Financial gave her a way to transform that guilt into action. Together, we created a new model for ethical investing, one that measured returns not just in dollars, but in lives changed. Robert, the veteran from the airport, became an advisor to our company, helping us design services for elderly users who'd been left behind by digital banking. Sarah, the mother with the autistic son, joined our accessibility team, ensuring our app worked for people with all abilities. Lynn, the Stanford law student, interned with us and eventually became our general counsel, fighting predatory lending practices in court. Even David, the teenage live streamer, found his way to us, running our social media presence and keeping us connected to younger users who needed financial literacy before they made life-altering mistakes. 1 year after that airport incident, I found myself back at SFO waiting for the same flight to New York. Economy class by choice. I could afford business now, but I preferred being with what James had called the real people. Keisha was there, not as a gate agent, but as an airline customer experience manager, implementing new training programs on dignity and respect. She recognized me immediately, and we hugged like old friends. "You changed my life," she said. "Not just the promotion. You showed me I didn't have to shrink myself to make others comfortable with their prejudice." "You changed mine too," I replied. "You showed me that courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about doing what's right despite the fear." As I settled into my economy seat, I thought about James's sneer. "Economy, don't complain, this is all you can handle." He'd meant it as an insult, a way to diminish and dismiss. But he'd been wrong about what we could handle. We could handle building businesses that served communities. We could handle standing up to bullies with billions. We could handle transforming systems designed to keep us out. We could handle rising without stepping on others. The economy of human dignity, it turns out, pays the highest dividends. And that's something the James Blackstones of the world, for all their wealth, could never afford to understand. My mother was right. Our worth was never determined by their economy. We were always priceless. It just took one moment of refusal to be silent for the world to see it too. Looking back now, I realize that moment at the airport wasn't really about James at all. It was about all of us who'd been told to accept less, to be grateful for scraps, to not complain about injustice, because this is all we could handle. It was about recognizing that we could handle so much more than they ever imagined. We just had to believe it ourselves first. The plane took off, carrying me toward new challenges, new opportunities to expand Bridge Financial's reach. In my bag was a photo my mother had given me, taken the day I graduated from Berkeley. In it, she's wearing the same uniform she wore to clean offices, standing next to me in my cap and gown. The contrast that seemed so stark then feels like harmony now. We were never different values of human. We were always equal. Some of us just had to clean offices at night to make sure others could dream in the light. That's the real economy lesson James never learned. The one that measures wealth not in what you can take, but in what you can give. Not in who you can diminish, but in who you can lift up. Not in handling less, but in handling everything with grace. So to anyone watching who's ever been told your economy class in life, that you should accept whatever you're given and not complain, remember this. You can handle more than they think. You can handle more than you think. And sometimes handling it means standing up and saying enough is enough. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've ever stood up to a James in your own life, I'd love to hear about it in the comments below. What moment made you realize your worth wasn't determined by someone else's economy? Please like this video. If it resonated with you, subscribe to hear more stories of everyday courage, and share this with someone who needs to remember their own worth today. Remember, we're all first-class humans, regardless of where we sit on the plane. Until next time, keep standing tall, keep speaking truth, and keep believing in your own value. Thank you. And may you always have the courage to handle whatever comes your way with dignity and strength.